Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man. So welcome to the very first broadcast after I changed my layout. You guys see that it's a lot more simplified. I got a lot of good feedback. People saying they really liked it. So we will see how it goes, how it looks in the future. So definitely leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Ideas. I try my best to try to accommodate every single person that I can. But the problem is sometimes there's only so much that you can do with certain things. You kind of have like limits that you have to kind of operate within. So yes, hopefully I can do your suggestion. I can at least try it, but don't be sad if I can't. Sorry, apologize to you. But of course, for all of my people in the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kumusta na aking makaibigan? Magandang umaga. It is morning, 7:43 a.m. Appreciate you guys for another, I believe, 2 weeks. I will be 13 hours behind the Philippines, and then I go back to being 14 hours behind. So it's not no crazy big difference, because we are gigantically like half a day behind you guys anyway. But anyways, I appreciate you guys very much. Anybody who is coming from Russia, I think it's just gotten into the morning. So dobroy otra, privyet, kakdela, spasibo for coming by and taking a look at my stuff. And you know what? I had somebody that mentioned the Astros in a comment a second ago. So I was like, you know what? Let me throw the Astro stuff on. Bam! All right, man. If you guys are ready to go, let's hit it. Bam! All right, man. Oh, yes. I forgot. This is Fabiano Caruana versus Maksim Chigaev of Russia. As you guys know, there is the FIDE chess.com. Let me get my hat right. The FIDE chess.com. Grand Swiss going on. Unfortunately, Wesley So did decide not to play. But I got to keep up with, the current popular chess. So let's roll. We do have E4, as you guys see on the board. We got C5. So we do have the Sicilian defense. Knight comes to F3. We see D6. And as I always say, this is almost always the way that you're going to see a Sicilian start off. Of course, when you are at way different levels of the game, you're going to see a bunch of different stuff. So, it's going to get crazy. But this is like by far going to be the most commonly played variations. We do see D4, pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, knight to F6, knight to C3, and then we have A6. Bam. The Sicilian Najdorf. Probably when anybody first starts playing the game of chess, they hear about the Sicilian Najdorf. It is one of the most, if not the most famous opening in the game of chess. It's a monster. So we do see H3 by Fabiano Caruana. You don't want, a lot of the times if you're thinking about attacking on this side of the board where all these arrows and everything are, you do want to go bishop to E3 and like a queen to D2. So it can get kind of annoying if the knight does come down. Because it is attacking that knight that you just beautifully placed on E3. So H3 just prevents that. And it starts kind of getting an attack rolling because G4 is definitely possible to be pushed. We do have E6. We got G4 just immediately. Just like, hey, I'm going to attack you right now. So we do see H6 trying to, slow down G5 as much as possible. We got A3. Black is kind of doing the same thing on this side because at the end of the day, A6... and B5 is like almost always going to be played in a Sicilian. Usually you see black castle this side, white castle this side. So you have, opposite side castling and you have attacks on both sides of the board. Any of you guys that are familiar with opposite side castling, it's usually a lot of pawns get thrown on each side of the board and you basically try to open lines and kill your opponent as quickly as possible. But we do see bishop to E3. We see bishop to E7. We have bishop to E3, like I said. Knight comes to C6. And then we see rook to G1, which is actually the novelty of the game. This is a very common move that you see when you're playing like a dragon. And especially if you go like a Yugoslav attack for the Sicilian dragon, you are pushing F3 and G4 and H4. And this rook is just adding a lot of extra, oomph behind the pawn. As you can see, you do have this pawn protective if you did so happen to want to push H4 in any position. We do see knight back to D7. We see bishop to E2. We got G5. And I mean, G5 does kind of create a little bit of some problems for black. like I said before, usually you see opposite side castling, but I mean, with h6 and g5 being played, you're pretty confident that black is not going to be castling queenside. It's possible, but it's actually very dangerous to do so. And then, I mean, you already have some pawns rolling on this side. So, I mean, the king is actually kind of stuck in the center of the board, you know, more you think about it. So we do see queen up to d2. Like I said, I mean, you're going to be having bishop to e3, queen to d2. Knight c comes to e5. We see long castles by white. b5, as I'm telling you guys all the time, this is the stuff that happens. You got this rolling, but like I said, the king for black is stuck in the center of the board, so it's a little bit more of a delicate situation that you're in as black. We got h4, and like I said, you know, rook to g1 just helps support this pawn. Bishop comes to b7, pawn takes g5, pawn takes d5, and then you do have rook to h1. You have just opened the h file. So, I mean, with the king being stuck in the center of the board, you know, you kind of want to, you know, throw, you know, try to take over this file here, try to sneak behind, you know, these pawns and see if you can attack this king because, I mean, the king is open. Rook comes over to g8. It's probably not best to trade in this position because you just basically give, like, you know, if we had this situation here, you basically give a white just the complete file, and you don't really want to do that. You're not in a position to castle at the moment as black. And this rook to h8 is going to be coming very fast. So rook does go to g8. We see rook up to h5 trying to attack, you know, this nice lonely little pawn over here on g5. We see rook over to c8. And generally when you're castled on this side, this is a really good move to make because you do have a lot of pressure on this c file. You know, that's kind of one of the main themes of the Sicilian. Once you give up this c file for the D, or for the c pawn for the d pawn, you generally have a lot of play on this c file. So the bishop does come to f6. We see f3, you know, just solidifying this structure here. You know, every now and then we do see, you know, we do see sacrifices on c3 by rooks, especially in the Sicilian dragon. So you have to be kind of wary of that. If you don't protect this pawn, this rook can take, and then the queen will take, and then you got the bishop snapping that pawn. And I mean, that's pretty beneficial for black. So we do see f3, like I said, queen came to e7. We see king over to b1. Knight comes to c4. And I mean, the position is actually really nice for white, mostly because this king is stuck in the center of the board. So you're not really too worried about, you know, giving up a bishop for a knight. So the bishop takes on c4. We see rook taking c4. And then we do see b3, you know, just backing the rook back up to c8. And then we actually do see a really interesting move in the position. It is not the best move, but it's kind of one of those things, like I always say, you are playing a human being. So the problem is the human is going to have to sit there and calculate and try to figure out, man, is this sound or did I miss something? What's the situation? So I will say it's like a move, you know, you can make it. It's movable. It's not the best, but I mean, it's pretty sound. It's not like it's not, you know, losing or anything, but it is knight to d5. It is sacrificing this knight to try to rip open the position. If you can do that, the king being in the center of the board is, you know, just super, super bad. So you kind of have to do something in this position. You are really going to have to take the knight, but Fabiano has like a really nice in-between move, and that is knight to f5. Instead of taking here immediately. And so, you know, we're hitting the queen. So, you know, the queen has many different options. Queen to e6 is one of the best options. And then you do see bishop taking g5. And we do see, I messed that up. Gosh, dude. I messed that up. All right, man. So I won't have a guess the move in this game because this was it right here. In this particular position, I was going between knight to d5 and guessing bishop to c3. It is a really nice move in this particular position right here. I think with everything that's going on in the center of the board, especially the queen being able to kind of penetrate and, you know, attack this pawn and go do stuff like that. I think that as black, it was actually kind of hard to see this really, really nice in-between move. And, I mean, black is actually in a little bit better position right here. But, like I said, it does seem really automatic just to take on g5. And we actually see bishop to c3. So this is a really nice, you know, really nice find by Chigaev. You know, just to counter attack the queen. And you are trying to knock the queen away from the protection of this bishop. You know, you have f6 possibly coming at some point, you know, inconveniencing the bishop. So, like I said, this was a position I was supposed to show, but I accidentally clicked too fast. So, crap me. But, so yes, that was it. So, if you did, I guess there was really no time to guess bishop to c3. But if you were to come up with some type of move like that in the game, you would be extra gangster. But like I said, bishop to c3 was the move. And then we did see queen over to h2. And, you know, so we do see knight down to e5. And, I mean, Chigaev is actually playing this really nice. I mean, considering, you know, the fact that, you know, white has sacrificed a piece and they're getting some very dynamic play. You know, black has basically like started kind of outplaying Caruana just a little bit. So, I mean, it's anybody's game. Rook does come up to h6, and this is a very critical point in the game. You know, what do you block with? Because you can go here, but you're looking at knight takes d6 with check. So you don't really want to do that. So you want to put a piece on g6. The problem is both moves you can put to g6 are not created equal at all. Rook to g6 is actually a blunder. This allows way too much play in the game and basically makes it to where it's Fabiano Caruana's game to lose. If we actually back up, so if we just go into like a couple of moves, but we'll be kind of on the game. The rook came to g6. The rook took on g6. Queen took on g6. And then you did see queen up to f4. And the main problem in the position is you're looking at rook to h6. And there is going to be no way that you can protect, you know, this pawn right here. And the queen is attacked. And I mean, it's just really, really bad. Super bad. So backing up, like I said, instead of rook to g6, knight to g6 was actually much better. But the problem is you had to be able to calculate so far to really like fully understand like the greatness of this move. So you would have to see about 3 moves deep. After knight came to g6, you are basically allowing knight takes d6 with check. And it's really interesting because I think the hardest part of this whole thing is the fact that you have to calculate all these king moves. The best move that the computer is giving is actually king to d7. And then after the knight takes on c8, king taking on c8. So you have to really be able to visualize this king walk. And in the midst of everything that's going on, I think that that's like one of the hardest things to do. To basically calculate all of these different king moves that seems like it might expose your king a little bit. But this was the actual best way to play. This is what gives black a continuous advantage. And that was not what was played in the game. Like I said, rook came to g6, rook took, queen took, and then you did see queen up to f4. And, you know, like I said, this was a critical point in the game. We did see knight taking f3, trying to deflect the queen away, which, you know, Fabiano Caruana goes ahead and does. We do see pawn taking e4, trying to get a tempo on the queen, but the problem is this actually just completely hands the game to white. Because before you actually had, you know, the ability of making a few other moves and not throwing a tempo on the queen. And at the moment, the bishop is undefended on g5. So after the pawn move taking on e4, you actually allowed the queen to step over and not only protect the bishop. You're looking at queen coming to a7. You're looking at rook coming either to h6 or h7. And it's, I mean, it's really lights out. It really is lights out. So the bishop does retreat back to g7, but we do see queen coming up to a7. And then after the queen does take on g5, we see queen taking b7. We see rook over to d8 because, you know, of course, it was attacked on c8. And then we actually see rook up to h7. And it is in this position that Chigaev does resign the game. And it is simply because there is no way that you can move this bishop anywhere. So this bishop is attacked twice. And there is nowhere to move it because if you move it anywhere, it is going to be queen to f7 checkmate. So as you can see, if you move the bishop literally anywhere, queen is going to be coming over to f7, and that is just all she wrote. The best possible move that the computer is giving is king over to f8. The problem is this really doesn't do anything just simply because the rook is going to take on g7 anyway. And the craziest thing about this situation is the computer actually suggests queen taking f5. I mean, Man, like, why would you take the knight instead of taking the rook? I don't know. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, man. Like, the computer is like, hey, bro, you know, do this. Like, I mean, how weird does this look? I mean, this is just automatically this. I mean, then you have this, and I mean, you're going to be taking the pawn, so you're just like, I mean, you're just up an entire queen. I don't even know. Let me look at the other one. Like, I mean, if you did this, I mean, I guess it's the same thing almost. I don't know what the difference. I don't know. I think it probably ends up being the same thing. You can pretty much do whatever you want when you're super winning. So, yes, that is that game. First game from the Grand Swiss, or first round from the Grand Swiss. So Fabiano Caruana, you know, he's doing good so far at least. So I'll be following the rest of the stuff, and I will be working to try to get the video. You know, you guys wanted to see some Wesley So versus Magnus Carlsen, so I'm going to dig deep into the history and see what I can come up with. But I appreciate you guys very much. Spasibo. Meron salamat aking makaibigan, and I will see you guys next time.